Hello, is it me you're looking for? Cash in the house already. Oh, what's going on in Nottingham? Is that the? I need to look. Hey, Spence, Robert, how are you? Hey, Cash, what's up? Hope everyone is doing good tonight. I was reading Cash's comments, so I didn't dive into my usual. What do I say for the first 2 minutes? Hi, Deirdre. It's good to see you. All right, so it's 7:01 p.m. on the East Coast, Tuesday, June 13th. Hope everyone is doing awesome tonight. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. As always, jump in, say hello, let me know you're here. Maybe it's time to give up where you're from, because I feel like I know, or we know, but feel free to tell us where you're from. Hey, Dave. Hey, Amy. Valerie in the house. Good to see you, Val. Every time I see Val's name or face, I feel like it's a hug. It's just a hug. It's an automatic hug. All right. I've been seeing this every time I do the stream. There's this like weird. Nope, still there. I wonder. Let's see here. Oh, it is a light reflection. Okay, let's see if we can fix this without knocking everything off. This is totally going to fall off tonight. Should probably plan for these things ahead of time. But anyway, okay, let's see here. Erica is here. Hey, Erica. Hi, Jen. Grimsby, England. But Cash, what happened near you? Matt Bannister. Hey, buddy. Mom's here. Hey, Grace. Good to see you. Okay, so quick question before we get started. Who's coming to the in-person conference? Who are we gonna meet? I think that's a good question. Just go ahead and put if you're going to be there. I'd love to see you in person, and shake hands, give hugs, tell stories. Oh, cool. Your doctor is. I'll be there. What? Grace in the house again. Awesome. I couldn't wait to see you, Grace. Portugal. Hi, Clara. Thank you for joining us so late. Appreciate you. Okay. While you're filling in on whether you're going to be at the conference or not, let's go over some housekeeping, and then we can jump into conversation because I need a haircut. Anyway, my name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the IOCDF, which simply means I have OCD, and I won't stop talking about it until people are getting treatment, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes after they're diagnosed. That would be awesome. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline. If you are in crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911 or 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. As always, we want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. And at the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. Also note this is being broadcast on several social media platforms, and it's being recorded. So just be mindful of that as we talk about very personal things. And with all of that, how is everyone doing? And totally okay if you can't stay. I'm just glad that you're here, whether you're here for 1 minute or 1 hour. I'm psyched that you're here. You're saying hi. Showing up is half the battle. So it's good to see everyone. As always, as we like to start out, just how's everyone doing? Yeah, I know the online conference is great too, and good, Amy. I look forward to seeing everyone either virtually or in person. Hi, Nikki Bradley in Dublin. How are you? Yeah, I think, obviously traveling is so expensive this year, especially for all our international friends. I looked at flying international. It was just the prices were just insane. So, and especially from Europe to San Francisco, it's not the closest coast. But we'll be in Orlando the following year, next year. So if you don't want to come to the conference, you can come to Disney, but then pop by the conference and say hi. Anyway, how's everyone doing? How are we feeling? How's our week? I know it's been a couple weeks. But check in with me and let me know how you're doing. Kayla, I wrote, unfortunately, I'm not going to the conference and intensive treatment conflicts with it. And obviously that has to trump any conference or event until I reach the maintenance phase. But that's awesome. That's a great reason to to not go to the conference, Kayli. I don't know. Okay, I call you Kayli, but Katie says I'm an idiot, and it's Kaylee, which makes total sense. I don't know why I was saying Kayli. So I think we should just put this to bed once and for all. I know you're going to say it's Kaylee, but I've always said Kayli. You've never corrected me. So what is the official verdict? Fill me in. Hey, Dave. Good to see you. Yeah, Kansas City. Good question, Erica. I hope that's right. I made a few geographic faux pas. That's a good. I would love it to be. I think there's a lot. I think we plan out 3 or 4 years in advance, and I am not in the know like I usually am. Usually, I know 3 or 4 years ahead of time, but I don't know beyond Orlando where we are. We might be going back to Seattle at some point because that was the 2020 conference was going to be Seattle, and that's where the COVID outbreak in the U.S. started. So we didn't go there, but yeah, Orlando will be fun though. It'll be tough to get Katie to the conference. Mickey competes. All right. So first of all, I hope everyone is doing well today. And I was just thinking about when the last time I spoke to you. Are you holding the World Cup? Really? I don't think I knew that. Huh. Big things happening here. Yeah, they are. Well, you're there, Erica. That's awesome. So I was trying to think about what's happened, in my life since last we spoke. I know we had a good town hall last week with Allegra, Chris Tronson, Kim Quinlan, Katie, and myself on grieving and grieving our life and, prior to OCD or with OCD and how it's like to heal from that. And I'm always happy to continue that conversation. I actually really love that subject. With that being said, I think in the last month, OCD has been challenging, at least personally, and definitely like lots of ups and downs and some bigger swings than usual. As always, you know that I like to keep it honest and candid with everybody about how my own life is going. Yeah, Matt, for sure. I think I don't remember if we talked if I repeated this or said this. Oh my gosh, I would love the conference in Dublin. That'd be so awesome. I'm always reminded when OCD hits when you're not experiencing it, and hopefully you do get some breaks or in this phase of maintenance. It feels so far away, and I may be repeating myself. But hey, Chad, good to see you. Yeah, Orlando's close to you for sure. Thank you. I'm glad I've been weird, Cash. That makes me feel good. Oh, you don't have to. Oh, okay. No. Kaylee or Kayli, you're allowed to have. You do not have to change your field pressure. Does not have to represent. We were just curious how you said that, the alias, whether it was Kayli or KLY or Kaylee. We're not trying to get to the bottom of who you are. You were absolutely allowed to. You're welcome to share your name. It would be awesome, but I don't want to have you do anything that would trigger you in any way. We can definitely have future conversations. And Cash, you are always have. I seemed often yeah, you have a way of speaking to me that is flattering. I think life has been challenging. I like to keep it real. Life is overall good, but there's been a lot of stress, and stress for me manifests usually in OCD or in anxiety. I've spoken a lot about some ups and downs with anxiety or mood or, emotions or even just, the OCD itself. And I think for me, Cash, I would say that you're not wrong. I think, I personally find it more challenging to advocate when I'm struggling because I always want to show myself in the best light. Hello, Uncle Ethan. I love that. No, I know what you're saying, Cash. And, I always really, really want to make sure that I give you the most honest and transparent version of myself, and what I'm going through, either in the moment or shortly after, and sometimes it's not healthiest for me to be like, oh, here's what I'm feeling right now. And other times it is, right? So, but regardless, I always want to illustrate the most realistic version of what OCD is for me, because that's just my reality. So whether it's OCD or life or anxiety, it's definitely been challenging the past 3 or 4 months. I think that there's a lot of, at least in my life, a lot of good stress, but good stress is scary stress, right? Good stress and good things makes everything feel more at stake, and makes things feel less room for error. You want more certainty around those things, and so definitely as I gear up here for big milestones in my life that I've honestly never felt that I would have. I definitely, the pressure's on. I really have struggled to practice self-compassion. I did some really good podcasts with Kim Quinlan a few weeks ago. I don't know when they'll be released, but a few weeks ago on self-compassion. And I think in general, it's just been challenging. But again, we know OCD attacks the things we care about most. And I have a lot of things I deeply care about happening right now. And so, you're not wrong. But I think that it's okay. I think the most important thing I'd like to say around this is, and this is where I think I don't mind Cash at all pointing out anything that he sees that's a little off, is that, we can do value driven things and be off. We can do value driven things and be messy. We can do value driven things and, not have the best day doing it, or have a terrible day doing it. At the end of the day, doing those things anyway, is what matters. It's not having OCD, or OC, right? The obsessions and compulsions. It's our response to the obsessions and the compulsions that matter. So it's okay to have the thoughts and the intrusive thoughts and whatever thoughts you're having, but I find good stress for me to be scarier than bad stress. It's already like I'm already stressed and I'm already in a bad frame of mind because of whatever stress it is, whether it's life or something more tragic or whatever it is. And so I feel like that's allowed to come with emotions that are appropriate, right? But I always feel put on the spot with good stress, because I think individuals that don't have OCD or other anxiety disorders, where I think, well, everything's amazing in your life. What are you worried about? I hate that statement. Like, you have nothing to worry about. There's nothing going on. You have only things to be excited about. And like, it drives me crazy to say. And I agree. But at the same time, it's kind of like the holidays, it's like there's expectations. Well, it's like, gosh, everything is going well in life. I'm like, I know. And that means everything can fall apart. Like, if your life is already falling apart, chances are you're not worried about your life falling apart. So Chad wrote, I just wanted to start a conversation. I just start about where I am. So, and it's little things. And, I will say that I recover just as quickly as I kind of skip the beat, have a blip. I might have a day or two where it's really challenging, and then I kind of put it to bed, and I have 3 or 4 or 5 days that are really good. And, and maybe I wasn't used to that. Maybe I was used to like going days, weeks, or months, as I've always said in the past, and really forgetting about OCD. And at least in the last, 6 to 8 months or 10 months, it hasn't been that. It's been a little bit more present in my life. Still not, for the most part, interfering with function, or it's maybe sucking a little bit of joy out of things where it was easier to enjoy. But it just means that I need to work harder at being comfortable being uncomfortable, and I'm okay with that. So my mother is asking a question because oh my, okay, I'll get to your question, Mom. But she knows me, so obviously she knows me. But real quick, Chad Talley wrote, I've had some good 7:11 p.m. I've had some good stress here recently, planning a public speaking event with Robbie Rapole, and I've noticed my health OCD flaring up. You'll have to let us know. And if you're, I love Robbie. You guys are awesome. And if it's being streamed in any way, I'd love to hear more about it, Chad. And yeah, for sure. I mean, right, when there's something at stake. Erica wrote, yes, good stress does that to me too. I've noticed after going so long without good stress, I'm over here like WTF. Yeah, for sure. Well, I get confused between good and bad stress. That's fair. Cool. I mean, like, so there's essentially eustress and distress, right? Eustress is good stress, distress is bad stress. Strangely, that's like the one thing I remember from health class in 8th grade. But so, bad stress is, death in the family, car accident, money thing, just things as we deem not good things. And good stress is, you got a new job, but you have to learn a bunch of new responsibilities, or you're in a new relationships. And with that comes a lot of responsibility and, being supportive and being a rock, or, you know, um, you're getting married or buying a house, or and what do those responsibilities look like, and what if everything goes wrong. So that's kind of the difference, at least for me, and is simply put. So good stress for me is good things, right? And all of those good things that are happening, like you know you meet someone and you're going on a first date. That's super exciting, but I think it's stressful too, right? What kind of impression might, and this doesn't have anything, you don't need to be OCD to have the thoughts about, like, what kind of impression am I going to make? I hope I look good. I hope they like me, that kind of stress. So there's, oh, thanks so much, John. My recent appearance on the OCD Stories podcast. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. So that's essentially, in short, good stress and bad stress, right? Good stress is just good things happening, but they're still stressful. You know, even so much as you're having house guests. Well, that you're having family that you haven't seen, or friends that you haven't seen. But cleaning the whole house, making sure everything's ready. Are they going to have a good time? Are they going to be bored? What if they're bored? What if I get sick and ruin things? I don't know. Lots of things go through our heads. So hopefully that makes sense. You're so welcome, Clara, for the conversation. So my mom at 7:14 p.m. wrote, "Do you find Sundays are harder and OCD is louder because of the work week ahead, or because?" Not sure what you mean, Mom, by "or because," but it's a good question because she knows I've been struggling with this lately. So, I mean, I think that, so I've had multiple conversations with my therapist about the Sunday scaries. And I think that, I don't know if anybody can relate and how they feel about Mondays. I used to love Mondays. When I was acting and I was in Los Angeles, I could not wait for Mondays. I was so excited about Mondays. I actually didn't understand individuals that liked the weekend and didn't like the weeks, because in my mind, with acting and performing, like, any phone call that was going to come in that was going to change my life wasn't going to happen on a Saturday. It was going to happen on a Monday through Friday, right? So I think that for those reasons, when I was acting and writing and directing, I really loved the weekdays because I knew magical things were going to happen. That isn't to say that I don't love my job or what I get to do. It is my passion in so many different ways. All the amazing things I get to do, from advocacy to consulting and working with amazing doctors and clinicians and experts and making commercials and all of those things. I think what makes Sundays, I very much feel like, and my mom knows what I'm talking about. Sundays before school, I hated it. I hated school. So, like, Sundays for me were like, I couldn't just relax. I had Friday night was the best because I knew Saturday was fine because I knew I had Sunday. Sunday was the worst. Now, I definitely don't hate anything that I'm doing in my life. But I think what's interesting, and I've recently been reflecting on this, is, before meeting Katie, I mean, I had lots of friends and stuff, but before I had a partner, the weekends looked very different, looking for things to do, watching other people go do things with their friends and or their significant others and things like that. I think that my values have shifted, and it isn't just my work isn't just my only value. Like, I was a workaholic. I worked to live, lived to work. And I think now, there's lots more things that are meaningful for me in my life. And so, while I absolutely love diving into the business at hand, there's also lots of things I want to do that I don't want to stop doing during the weekend days. So, I mean, I definitely think, I wonder if those can relate, coming up, having to deal with responsibilities and all that stuff. But if I also look at the bigger picture and kind of widen out, like, I could sit here and be, oh, it's my OCD, it's anxiety, but like everybody talks about happy hour for Friday for a reason. Everybody talks about like it's almost the end of the week. We talk about it in every meeting that I'm in, right? All these individuals that don't have OCD are like, oh my God, I can't wait till Friday. I can't wait. It doesn't mean you hate your job. It just means that you have other things that are important to you. So I think the plus side of sort of the Sunday Scaries is that I've just widened out my values. Like I just have more values and more things I care about. And I think that's exciting. And so it's just about balancing it. But thank you for the slightly uncomfortable question, Mom. I appreciate it. Sort of. 7:14 p.m. is self-destruction an OCD thing or just normal? Things go well, you destroy? That's a great question. I don't know if you're being sarcastic. I think that people self-sabotage regardless of whether you have OCD or not. I think ending things on your own terms feels in control versus waiting for the worst to happen. It happens in relationships all the time, right? It's like I'm gonna end this. I'm gonna sabotage this relationship before they break my heart or something happens that I'm not expecting. It's a self-preservation mechanism. So I definitely don't think it's an OCD thing. Now, whether self-sabotage is common with OCD, sure, absolutely it is, but I definitely don't think it's unique to the OCD diagnosis for sure. Thank you, Matthew. You're the best. I love your energy. Scrolling down here. Castro at 7:18 p.m. I find it hard to determine what's normal and what is OCD. Sorry, I repeat myself. OCD, that's okay. I thought you were asking. I'm not sure if you're asking seriously, but if you are, leave another comment down, and I will. I'll go on. Ethan, were you in Venom? Let There Be Carnage. I was not in Venom. Was that the new? Is that the second one? I was not in Venom. I wonder if there is another Ethan Smith in the business. He is I have a funny story, but he is a very high-powered producer. I wasn't as an actor. No, I haven't acted since 2014, but sometimes people see Ethan Smith in the credits and they wonder if that's me. And so anyway, there's another Ethan Smith. He produced the Deadpool movies and all the Fast and the Furious movies and Hobbs, The Rock, the spin-off movies. It was actually very funny because when I was living in Los Angeles, I lived in a small apartment that was exorbitantly expensive because it's just expensive there, but it was a small 1-bedroom apartment in an okay neighborhood. And I remember the building manager knocked on my door and he was like, dude, I can't believe you produced the Deadpool movies. That's awesome. I didn't know you did all that. And I was kind of like, if I was that producer, I probably wouldn't be living here. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but it was really, really funny that he thought that like I was that producer. And yeah, so I was like, that's different Ethan Smith. But I did get a lot of requests on my LinkedIn. It's very funny. It's not uncommon to hide things from your mom, Cash. Okay. Not being sarcastic. Okay. Let me go back then. I find it hard to let's go back to 7:18 p.m. Amanda. I find it hard to determine what is normal and what is OCD. So first of all, Cash, or anyone that's watching, I think this is a very common issue among individuals with OCD. I think we can get really bogged down between trying to determine what is or isn't an OCD thought and action. I want to play with this word normal a second. So the first thing to keep in mind is our thoughts are no different than anyone else's thoughts. So OCD thoughts are not unique to individuals with OCD. Everyone has the same thoughts at any given time. We just go, oh, that was an interesting thought, and let me apply some emotion and the spotlight to it and bring it into the forefront and loop on it, right? Whereas somebody might think a horrific thought or a dangerous thought, not a dangerous thought, but something that is terrifying about harm or kids or whatever it is, and go, oh, that's an awful thought, and that floats by, and that's it, right? So first things first is I don't like to sit here and say like what's normal and what's OCD. I think the question becomes, because it's all normal, the part that isn't normal is the glitch and where we start to associate meaning to it and so forth and so on. So the question becomes, when is a thought an obsession, right? And if it is an obsession, then is it something that I move forward with in a value-driven way or in a compulsive way? So for instance, in my own life, health anxiety gets me, right? So I have a headache and my next thought is, what if something's seriously wrong with me? And okay, people have those thoughts, right? So then the next question becomes, well, should I go to the doctor? Well, is that a compulsion, or is that an obsession? Is that a compulsion, part of OCD, or is that a valid thing to do, right? Is that justifiable? And most likely, most individuals with a headache generally don't go to the doctor because they have a headache. Though you have heard those stories of like, oh yeah, that poor woman complained about a headache and then had an aneurysm and dropped dead, right? So there are those what ifs, but and then there's other times where, I have a fever for 4 days and I'm sick and it's not even a question. It's like, okay, going to the doctor is an appropriate thing here. We can get really bogged down in trying to determine what is OCD and what is not OCD. And it can get really confusing, and it can actually really become a compulsion to even just determine what's OCD and what's not OCD. And we definitely don't want to get in that loop of trying to dissect every one of our thoughts, and determine what is or isn't. OCD has a very, we get better at this with practice and treatment and therapy and all of those things, but OCD has a very distinct flavor, and it becomes easier to identify the more you do it. In other words, an approach that I took, at least in treatment, was, I just assumed every thought was OCD because that's where I was at. But it took the pressure off of trying to figure it out, and I think relying on other people and my treatment team to help me decide what was and what wasn't, until I got more insight and objectivity into my thoughts and understanding what was Ethan value driven and what was obsessive. I feel like now I'm pretty good at sussing out 95% of my thoughts is going, oh, that's OCD. Okay, no, that's a thought that's valid, and something I would want to follow through on. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is hard to determine what's OCD and what isn't OCD, especially when you're in the throes of it. And seeking objectivity from a treatment provider or a therapist or a close friend can always be helpful to find a baseline. But inevitably, I think sometimes if we check in deep enough, we do know the truth of whether something is boarding to, or not every time, but many times we do know. And I was eating salmon today, and I have food stuff around, and it tasted sour. My salmon tasted sour, and it was smoked salmon. And I opened up the package yesterday, and I had it yesterday too. And my brain was instantly went, oh my God, sour salmon is bad salmon. You should stop eating this right now. But then I quickly said, well, I ate it yesterday and it was perfectly fine. And I opened it up and it tasted delicious. And there's 1,000 reasons why it could taste sour. And yes, my OCD is saying it's bad. You're going to get food poisoning, blah, 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 blah. And while that may be true, not trying to disprove that, but I know I'm on a medication that changes my taste buds. Food tastes weird all the time. Maybe it's saltier. There's 1,000 reasons why, right? So I'm just going to sit with that thought, recognize it as probably OCD, and just move forward with finishing my lunch and going about my business. And knock wood, if I get sick, I get sick, and hopefully I won't. And it was just OCD. And it is hard, right? I mean, like, if you just Google, smoked salmon gone bad, and the first thing it says is tastes sour. Well, then A plus B equals C here. But that's not exactly how it works. And I don't mean to go off a tangent, but this is such a great question. So hopefully this is helpful. I think the other piece of whether we're having OCD. Oh, I lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. I'll come back to this. I don't want to kill any more time. But anyway, I hope you all found that helpful. And many times you can kind of like be honest with yourself. So anyway, Cash. Yeah, I scrolled down quickly, and oh, Kimberly. Proud of you. That's awesome. And maybe you've gotten a little less anxious since it's nice to meet you, Kimberly. And I'm sure everybody agrees that it's nice to meet. Yeah, we're black and white. It's actually A plus Z equals, oh crap, it's going to happen, right? Because our brains go from A to Z. That's probably more the realistic equation. We never get to B and C. We have A, and then we have Z, and then we panic. So maybe Mackenzie rewrite that formula: A plus Z equals oh shit. So just being honest. But I agree, Kimberly. She wrote, I'm going to go back up. At 7:28 p.m., Kimberly wrote, the treatment recommendation, especially in the beginning of during severe OCD, is if you have the doubt whether it is or OCD, is assume it is OCD and do the opposite of OCD. And I agree with that. Not all therapists will. But look, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's most likely a duck, but it is very challenging. But you can get in that loop of trying to determine what is and what isn't. So it's just trying to bypass that compulsivity around whether it's OCD or not OCD. Erica wrote, being a stay-at-home mom, I really miss that feeling I would get from hitting Friday. Now weekends are just the same thing as the rest of the week. But I think, I don't know, maybe that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying you're suggesting it's a bad thing, Erica, but I think, that sounds like balance to me. I don't know. That's and a stay-at-home mom is most definitely a full-time job. And so, hats off to you without a doubt. Interesting. Leanne wrote, good stress, 7:24 p.m. Leanne wrote, good stress is motivating, not debilitating. Interesting thought, Leanne. I think I would argue that it could be both. So, if I guess, yeah, I think there's gray in it. And I'm by no means the expert. I'm just tossing up devil's advocate for the sake of the conversation. But I think when we're put on the spot, I think that can be very triggering and debilitating. And I remember before my engagement shower, I was having the worst anxiety because I didn't want to be the center of attention, and I didn't want people to fuss on me over us. And I was afraid I was having a million different thoughts about a million different things going wrong. And, I obviously went and had a good time. There was a couple of moments when I was just like, crap, can I just not do this? Can I not go through this? And, I think being debilitated is a very specific choice, willing to not do something, or let me rephrase it. It's not always a choice. Obviously, if you're having debilitating anxiety, that you're not choosing to have that anxiety. So I'm by no means suggesting that, but, I definitely think me choosing to go to the party despite how I felt, but it was still good stress. Like, they were throwing me a party. It was very exciting, lots of gifts. And I was like, oh crap. So I do agree with you. And at the same time, I think there's really good stress that could also potentially be debilitating, in the sense that it's just so overwhelming with what's happening. Like, I think about if I became president of the United States, I feel like that would completely debilitate me. I'm just saying. Kimberly wrote at 7:24 p.m. That is me, partially inspired by last week's Voices Challenging Vulnerability, something I am learning, a bit inspired by the IOCDF's last blog on shame, guilt, shame, and kicking OCD to the gutter. Well, Kimberly, I think we can all give you a virtual round of applause. Proud of you for coming out with your name and sharing that information. We're all in this together. We're a really tight community and family, and I think you're awesome. So thanks for sharing. Okay, let's see here. Where was I? Matt Bannister at 7:28 p.m. wrote, for me, separating my authentic self and an imaginary self helped me understood what OCD was and OCD being ego dystonic. I totally agree. So ego dystonic, for those of you that don't know, simply means going against your values. So, and it's something that we talk about a lot in understanding that, OCD always attacks the things we care about most and attacks our values. So when we're afraid that we're our thoughts, right? Like, oh my gosh, what if I do want to accidentally hurt myself, hurt others? What if I do want to touch some kid or whatever it is? It's important to understand that OCD in general is ego dystonic, meaning, in fact, no, that goes completely against who you are. That goes against your values. And it, in fact, is most likely attacking the things that you care about, like life, your friends, your family, your children, other people's children, right? Things that you would never do in a million years. But those thoughts feel so real. Those images feel so real. Oh my God, what if this is me? What if this is who I am? What if this is what I want to do? So, I agree, Matt. I think it's really important to be able to separate, and that just comes with treatment. Honestly, I mean, I was so fused with my OCD when I was really sick. I couldn't make heads or tails of what I wanted and who I was. It really required a lot of push to create the separation between me and my thought so I could actually make some decisions in this space and go, wait a second, I don't know if this is accurate, right? But when we're here, and so many of us are, it's really, really hard to be able to have the space, because there is none, to make determinations and have objectivity and insight, right? And so that's why it's so challenging, and that's why treatment is so imperative, because treatment creates that space where you can start to make choices, see that compulsing is a choice. It's not an I can't, it's an I won't, choosing not to or choosing to, and making those type of decisions. So thank you, Matt, for your insight. Yeah, imaginary. I got you. I auto corrected in my brain. And yes, Mimi wrote 7:29 p.m. Google has become my enemy in this battle. Google, I actually, when Katie and I moved in together, I set up smart speakers all over the rooms because I want everybody listening to everything that I say. And I'm an avid Googler, and I try to put it to bed, but it happens sometimes. And I was laying in bed, and I told Google to set my alarm, and it was like the first time we set it up, and I realized, oh my God, I can Google from bed, like just laying down, no screens, no phone. I can just like ask Google 100 reassuring things, which of course Google never reassures you. It's like, what happens if you have a hangnail? You have 48 hours to live. I'm so sorry. And it's like, oh, Google. So yeah, Google, I think, as wonderful as having access to the to all the information in the world, Google is definitely OCD's best friend and not ours. Which is why, as much as you can tolerate not Googling, don't Google. At least when it comes to looking into finding certainty around the things that you're upset about or obsessing about. Eric wrote, as someone with OCD, 7:30 p.m. Sorry, Amanda. As someone with OCD, the worst class I took in college for my degree was food safety. 10 out of 10. Don't recommend. I don't. Yeah, I'm just glad I'm not a doctor and don't know. I don't want to know. Ignorance is bliss. Sometimes I don't want to know certain things. And also, who cares if you do know? Like, OCD pokes holes in all of it. I mean, that's the reality. Is like, we think that knowledge is power in regards to OCD, and it is from a clinical standpoint and from a treatment education standpoint. But from a knowledge, like, I want to know about the things that I'm worrying about, OCD will never be satisfied. You can have a 12 PhDs in whatever you're afraid about. I could be a chef and know everything there is to know about food, everything, what it smells like, tastes like, the right degrees, how it's stored, how long it lasts. Doesn't matter what I know. I would take it out. My brain would go, okay, this is everything that it is. And then OCD will go, yeah, but are you sure? Did you remember? Did you do that? What if this the power could have gone? And that's it. It doesn't matter how much I know, which is why the embracing the uncertainty piece is literally the key to managing OCD, because OCD is going to poke holes in whatever you know to be true, which is why we try not to just out logic OCD, because you'll just spin in a circle. And so it's a great, I love that comment, Erica, because it totally took me in that direction. So thank you. Lola Mode is also my alias, but it's cool if people thought that was actually my name. It sounds like a character from The Incredibles. It totally does. Or like your Lola is your superhero, and like when you transform from your alter ego, you activate Lola Mode. It's like the thing that you yell, like, Lola Mode activated, and then you go into Lola with whatever superpowers you have. John wrote, I'm being resilient, but I'm suffering from intrusive thoughts and checking locks and things, just checking in. That's where I'm at. I appreciate you sharing where you're at. And I mean, it's so hard to be resilient, and as much help and hope as there is, I know how tiring, and we all know how tiring this can be. And wherever you are, John, if you visit the ARCDF website, lots of resources. If you haven't been before, I haven't seen you here before. So, but lots of resources and articles and videos and resources to clinicians and things like that. So there's help, there's hope. OCD is very treatable. And so, any questions you have, please let us know. We're all here to support one another. Kimberly wrote, "Oh my gosh, I feel you with your salmon challenge. I had similar incident with bad food the other day. I don't have health anxiety, but I do have a fear of vomiting." Yeah, for sure. I think mine. I think my stuff specific around food is around emetophobia or a fear of vomiting more than it is about health anxiety. But yeah, no, I feel you. Thank you for validating that. Um, Robert at 731 we wrote, I think of the effect psychological as a lot more intrusive than the thought. I can ultimately think that this thought does not merit this physical reaction, not that it's easy to separate the two. I'm going to read that again. I think of the effect, the psychological, as a lot more intrusive than the thought. I can ultimately think that this thought does not merit this physical reaction. I got you. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy to cast shame on ourselves too, because we respond a certain way to a thought and then be like, why are we responding like this? But in reality, it's disease. You know, it's a disorder, and it's just the way it operates. But I agree. I think the effect can be very challenging, and but also, you know, the thought may not merit it if you don't have OCD, but if you do, then it does, right? I mean, it's a lot like just emotional dysregulation too. Like, you know, if you lose your keys and then you drop down in a puddle of on the floor just bawling and screaming because you lost your keys, it's probably not appropriate reaction for what happened. But, you know, if you have X mental illness, then who's to judge that also, right? So it's really not so much about the why that happens, and more about the how do we approach and address when the physical reaction occurs from the psychological intrusive thought. But I think that's a really good observation. So thank you. Amy Ellickson giving shout out to Kimberly at 7:31 p.m. Fantastic, Kimberly. You did it. Proud of you. I agree. I hope it's Myrna, and I'm not just killing that. I was going to say Myrna, but I don't think that's right. 7:32 p.m. I've been in recovery for 6 months now and have been feeling much better, but I have recently fallen back into rumination compulsions. Any advice for staying on the path of recovery? Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I'm so glad. First of all, for those of you that, you know, are always doubt treatment, you know, I always love displaying proof. And also, Myrna, you're absolutely not alone in you know, what I like to call lapses. You know, they aren't necessarily relapses, but OCD does this, and you can be doing everything right, and the obsessions can still continue to get loud, and you know, and that's okay. So a couple advices, advicee. A couple thoughts on staying on a path to recovery. One is understanding that compulsing, and you probably know this if you did exposure response prevention or any other evidence-based treatment, but compulsing is a choice. We have a choice. So, which means that relapse prevention is in most cases a choice of ours. I'm not saying that if you relapse, you're to blame. I am saying, though, however, that you are in control of whether you compulse or not. And this was very powerful for me in my own recovery when I was in a place of maintenance and it had only been 4 or 5 months and I hadn't had any of the thoughts that I was having prior. And then they popped up and I was like, oh my God, it's back. What do I do? Right. And I started talking to my therapist and they were like, well, you can have the thoughts. You can't control what thoughts pop in and what emotions pop in, but we can control the reaction to the thoughts and we can control the behavior to the thoughts. Right. So it's not so much are we having the thoughts, it's how we're responding to the thoughts. So part one of recovery mode and relapse prevention is understanding that you do have control over how you respond to your thoughts, your focus and behavior. So, you know, I think, you know, obviously rumination, compulsions in your head, rewind, review, if you're doing those things, checking, replaying, those are definitely challenging compulsions because your mind just goes there. So the first thing to do is when your mind does that and you catch yourself, don't shame yourself for doing that, right? But B, when you catch yourself, okay, now that you're aware that you're doing it, can you come back to the present moment? Can you stop the rumination and dive into something that's meaningful to you, that's value driven? Can you change your focus to something? Are you willing to live with the uncertainty that whatever the reason you're ruminating, right? Are you willing to let that happen and not ruminate over it? And keep doing that over and over again. Be willing to embrace that fear and that uncertainty and all the things that you did from the beginning. Doesn't matter if the thoughts have changed, doesn't matter if the fears have changed. what you learn to help you get better is the same tools you for whatever thought, whatever fear, whatever subtype, whatever symptom. So step one is understanding that you know that that we do have power over our compulsions. Number two is understanding why you don't want to compulse. What is your motivation for choosing not to compulse? What are your values? Why? What did you lose before that you've recently got back? That you're feeling better, that you don't want to give up again? And is that motivating to you to want to maybe not ruminate when you catch yourself and say, "Oh, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to let that be because I don't want to go backwards." For me, identifying values and goals and really meaningful things in my own life were so key and still remain so key in me really fighting urges to compulse, because I know for certain that if I continue to compulse, my OCD will get worse. And the more it gets worse and the more I compulse, the more my world starts to get smaller and the more things I value, I start to lose. So do I want to go back to that place? Right. And the answer is no, I don't want to go back to that place. So I'm going to do everything that I can to make choices to not compulse, let the thoughts be there, be uncomfortable, be comfortable by being uncomfortable, embracing uncertainty, and being willing to move forward in value driven ways, keeping very focused in the forefront of my mind the reasons why I'm making these choices. Why am I choosing to be uncomfortable? I think for me, those two things, understanding that compulsion is a choice and understanding, keeping in mind the values, the core values of why I want to remain well and better, why I chose to go through treatment, right? The things that I've gained back in my life and what I'm not willing to lose. Now, this doesn't mean this is a perfect science. Okay. This doesn't mean that you have to do this perfectly. It's so common for 6 months in, 8 months in. And also that's the nature of OCD. That's why relapse isn't defined by the thoughts that you're having. It's defined by the compulsions and the actions and the level of functionality that's happening. So understanding the disease state is really, really important. If you're doing everything right and OCD gets loud, that's normal. That's totally normal. We just talked at the beginning of this conversation about stress, good stress, bad stress. That brings all that crap on, right? So you can be doing everything right. Obsessions can get loud and sometimes result in compulsions. That doesn't mean that you're failing. That doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. That doesn't mean that you're relapsing. It means that you have OCD, right? So then what do we do from there? Hopefully that was some short-winded, long-winded, medium-winded suggestions to staying on a path to recovery. But it's not a straight line. Just like a diet. You go on a diet, or you try to live a healthier life and you cheat, or you go through 2 days of cheating, or you get off for a week. That's just part of it. The question then is, what do you do after that? Do you go back to do you just throw everything that you worked with away because you messed up for a week? Or do you say, all right, you know what? I'm going to give myself compassion for that. I can meet myself where I am, but still want better and move forward. Oh, you're all good, Kimberly. You can email me whenever you want. Katie's in the house. Hi, Katie. Matt Bannister at 7:33 p.m. asks, how can I submit a SIG group idea with the IOCDF? Ethan. Would love to have a SIG group for all the IOCDF advocates to interact and bounce ideas off each other to help the community. Yeah, email me, Matt. Let's talk about it. There's definitely the advocates. You can definitely join grassroots advocates, but we can maybe brainstorm a SIG idea around advocacy. And there's so many SIGs now, but I love that. So let's continue the conversation. I'll give out my email at the end, and we'll have a conversation about it. So good call, Matt. I love that. Okay. Oh, you're so welcome, Kimberly. Lots of support for Kimberly. Sorry, Brad. I see your post, but I don't speak Spanish, so I'm so sorry. Let's see here. Oh, I lost my place. Lola said, I sometimes feel like friends in 7:36 p.m. Sorry, man, I'm driving her crazy today. Sometimes feel like friends and family need to at least know that I have OCD. If it's a part of me, but yes, it is not me. They don't have it, accept or understand it. It would be nice if they did, though. So yeah, we did a great town hall 2 or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago on this very topic. And I would say, here's what I would say. This is my own opinion, so take it or leave it. But, I understand the need to have, I think you were on that stream, Lola, but regardless, I understand the need to want to be understood, right? And the need to, for someone to understand you fully and wholly. Um, the question becomes, what do you gain and what do you lose by those individuals knowing that you have OCD? Sometimes it's valid, sometimes it's not. Same with the job. What I constantly go back to is, what kind of impact is OCD having in your life? And if it's having an impact on your life so much that, it's important that the people closest to you know what's going on for various reasons, then that's 100% valid. Anything you think is valid, but that makes sense, right? But the analogy that I like to use is, if you're in maintenance and recovery, and we can get into a whole conversation about dating and disclosure and jobs and all that stuff, but the gist of it is that, if you had cancer and, 3 years ago, and you were in remission and subsequently either close to being cured or cured, what kind of urgency would you feel to disclose this fact to other people and family and friends, right? May not be the first thing you mention because it doesn't really impact your life anymore. If you currently had it, right, and you were dealing with it, then yeah, it makes sense, right? So I'm not suggesting one way or the other is right for you, Lola. I'm simply presenting options and sort of where you fall into that category. And I agree, understanding and acceptance would be really nice, especially around OCD and mental health and all of those things. And I think that we would love that, and we can try to get that from individuals, and we've talked numerous times about how to approach helping people understand about OCD. But at the end of the day, yes, it is a disorder. It is part of you, but it is not who you are. It does not define you. And so, your relationships, who you are to your friends and family and who they are to you, should not be defined by your OCD. And so I think at a certain point, if people just aren't willing to understand, then, it's easy to say, but then maybe they're not your friend or someone, there'll always be family, but maybe they're not somebody that you want to be close to, because, it should have no bearing on that. So my 2 cents on that. So I definitely understand the need. I just think as individuals with OCD, we definitely feel a need to confess. And from a morals group perspective, a lot of us feel like, well, if I don't share this big secret about me, then I'm a bad person, or I'm not telling them the truth, or they can't love me, or am I being immoral, right? And it really just depends where you are in your process. That also then dictates whether it is something you want to talk about, you should talk about, you need to talk about, you shouldn't mention. And it's by no means a blanket answer at all. So thank you for sharing, Lola. I appreciate you. Yes, good old Dr. Google. Step away from the Google. So yes, we all that's where we are. We're in the Google conversation. All right, let me scroll down here and see. Let's see here. Oh, Myrna. Okay, I'm Scottish and it's a Scott Gaelic name. Don't worry, no one ever knows how to pronounce it. I feel like I didn't get too far off. Okay, well, it's nice to meet you, Myrna. Thank you for sharing. When can I see Waving? Great question. So Waving is a short film that I executive produced. It's on the festival. Hi, Kelly, and I hope you're well and enjoying being in the States. It's a short film that I produced. It's a powerful, powerful 18 minutes about intrusive thoughts. And it's currently on the short film circuit, where it's won, I think, 13 or 14 awards and been nominated almost 20 times. It's a brilliant film. I say that because I actually had very little to do with the creative piece. I was on the business side of things. But what I can say is it's a remarkable example of what OCD actually is. And so that's the long-winded answer of saying, as soon as it's done with its festival run, we're talking about how best we want to release it to the public. So I would probably say by the end of this year, it'll be out, maybe a little sooner. But it's still got probably another 3 or 4 months of festival before we move into. But I can't wait to share it with you all. It's really quite something, and I'm proud to just be a small part of it. Let's see here. Whoops. Sometimes it scrolls down automatically and then I lose my place. Okay, Myrna, there we go. CanTT at 7:44 p.m. How can you draw a line between real precautionary thoughts and intrusive thoughts? Yeah, we kind of touched on this subject with Cash, CanTT. It's a great question. And it's a long question, and only because I already answered sort of pieces of this already. Definitely, you can watch the earlier parts of this, but I'll give out my email address at the end. And please email me the same question. We can definitely have a longer conversation about it, because that is obviously a big challenge for so many folks with OCD, including myself. Is understanding that difference and when you should listen and not listen and so forth and so on, and what if OCD is right. So thank you for that question. I just want to try to get to a few new questions, but hang tight, CanTT, if you're still here, and we'll definitely get you some information so we can answer that for you for sure. Also, I don't know if there's what's the live stream tomorrow, Amanda? Is it an Ask the Experts or is it a lunch and learn with somebody? Because if it's an Ask the Experts, you can definitely getting that answer now. Oh, research roundtable. Yep, never mind. But yeah, definitely email me, and we'll happy to have that conversation with you. So thank you, Can. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Kimberly, thank you for the instantaneous Spanish language translation. I like it. I'm just going to have you on speed dial. So Andrea wrote at 7:52 p.m. Were your family friend relationship suffering before you went for help? Did you initially resist getting help and feel resentful of the help around you that wanted you to go for help? And what eventually convinced you to go for help? It's a great question. And I know I'm kind of shortcutting these answers because I hope I'm not coming off insensitive. Amanda, if you wouldn't mind putting a link to my my keynote speech from 2014, it's my whole story, and it very much delves very deep into that question, and offers a lot of insight. And so, great question, Andrea. I think it's a very long answer, and I definitely would love to talk about it. So please don't hesitate to. Amanda will put a link to my speech from almost 10 years ago. You'll look at me. What happened? Will be your first thing as you see it, because I had actually colored hair, and I was dashing. I was just dashing. But trying to think if there's a quick way to I mean, the short of the answer is yeah, all my relationships suffered. I lost most of them. My parents were my only people in my life, and I desperately wanted help, but I resisted it because I'd been to the wrong doctors and wrong medication, all the wrong things for 17 years. And so in essence, by the time I found the right treatment, I was basically like, F you, you can't help me because everyone else could. And so, I mean, F you because no one else could. And so why were these people any different? And then everybody kind of pushed me around and forced me everywhere. The thing was, I was so debilitated at that point. I was completely non-functioning and just suffering. And which meant I could be convinced of things. I wasn't defiant. I mean, I was defiant in terms of like just not wanting to feel pain and being like, I won't do that. But I definitely wanted help. I just didn't want to feel what I was feeling anymore. So yes to all of the above. But as far as, what convinced me, you know, I think just I knew I was going to lose my life and I didn't want to. So, and again, it kind of dives deep into all that, but that's the short-winded answer of that. I probably could have just answered that at the beginning and not go into all the reasons why I couldn't answer it. Lesson learned. Thank you, Andrea. Great question. We are running out of time. Some good questions here. Oh man. All right, we'll go through and let's see here. All right, one more question. Let me get to somebody that hasn't asked a question before. April at 7:54 p.m. asked, "Is there a big distinction between something like harm OCD versus postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis?" Great question. I think that, well, yes. I always like to start out by saying I'm not a clinician. I'm not an expert. I always speak from lived experience. This is a great question. I think a question that could probably be answered better without question by a clinician. I mean, postpartum depression is a completely separate diagnosis It's not a subtype or symptom of OCD, and so is postpartum psychosis. There is post and perinatal related OCD, right? So maybe what you're touching on, like harm OCD around yourself or the baby when it's born and things like that. But we're kind of talking about a subtype or symptom of OCD, harm OCD, right? If it relates to pregnancy or baby, and then very distinct clinical diagnoses. And so, yes, there are big distinctions. And as far as getting in the nuances of each of those things, I think best a clinician answer them. But the short of answer is, yeah, for sure. And harm OCD is not postpartum depression, and postpartum depression is not postpartum psychosis. So, in short, that's essentially it. But please feel free to email myself or the foundation, and we can definitely get you a more specific answer to that question, or at least dive into those. But thank you for asking that. With that, it's 8:01. If I didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. Hang tight till the end. I'll give out my email. And I am so behind on emails, by the way. So if you emailed me in March and I haven't gotten back to you, please re-email me, because I'm just gonna delete and start fresh, because that's how we deal with things. It's not avoidance, I swear. So with all of that, first of all, thanks to the IOCDF, and thank you, Amanda, behind the scenes for supporting some major announcements, or some things you already know. But registration is open for the 28th Annual OCD Conference in San Francisco. There's absolutely still time to register. You can go to iocdf.org/OCDCon. Please, please, please. There might even be volunteer positions still available, I think. Amanda, am I right? Am I wrong? Because you can at least get I'm looking for the private chat light to go on, but you can possibly get your registration fee waived. I'm not sure if they're still looking for volunteers if you're in the area. Oh, there we go. And the answer is, volunteer apps are closed. Disregard everything that I just said. And Ethan died last week. Thank you. I am back. I am back. I am better. I am stronger. Thank you, Cash. Cash keeps me on my feet. So go to the conference, check it out. No free registration. Volunteers are closed. But know that exists. Let's spin on that. You can volunteer, and volunteer literally is 2 hours here, announce a panel, and you get free registration for the entire weekend. Volunteer is not 5 hours a day for 3 days. It literally is do one thing or work for an hour or two, and you get the whole registration for free. It really is cool. So if you didn't know about it before, and you're in the area, next time it's in Orlando, or it's a conference you want to go, check out the volunteer option, because it's a great way to get a free registration. Also, walks are taking place across the country. You can visit iocdf.org/walk to find a walk near you. And finally, the proposal system for the 2023 Conferencia de TOC is now open. That is our Spanish language Latinx conference. The deadline for submitting a presentation proposal is Monday, June 26th. 2023 at 5 p.m. You can submit today. You can visit conferenciadetalk.com to learn more. Finally, this live stream is one of many. You can visit iocdf.org/peace of mind to check them all out. If you need resources, you can always go to iocdf.org. And finally, if you'd like to touch base with me, this is my own email. Yes, the next one is in Orlando. So I say we go to Disney and do some exposures for sure. Email me, just ethan@iocdf.org. I don't share it with anybody unless you give me permission to. You can ask me questions, comments. You can say you love me. You can say you hate me. You can say anything in between. It's an open place to share ideas and thoughts and questions and all the above. With that, thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back 2 weeks from today. And until then, have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Until then, tune in tomorrow, Research Roundtable with Kyle King. It will be really good. Have a beautiful evening. Good night.